What's going on, everybody? I want to make a video of the top 5 British fighters, British boxers. I'm going to say since 1980, so just to, make it where people kind of know more about these guys. I'm not going to count guys like Bob Fitzsimmons and people from so long ago. I'm going to talk about people from more recent, the more modern era of boxing. Now, over the years, the UK fighters and the fan bases have really grown, and they've become a lot more into boxing, and now they are probably the dominant market in boxing, I would say, honestly, with boxing in America not being quite as big as it was, and really MMA and the UFC taking a lot of those people away from boxing. Whereas in England, besides for soccer and maybe cricket, I don't know, or rugby, but I think boxing, besides for soccer, is the biggest sport. So they have some big stars, obviously, that you guys all know about. Guys like Anthony Joshua, Tyson Fury, Josh Taylor, Amir Khan up until his retirement. The list goes on and on. So I'm going to just make it since 1980 just to kind of, get people to not, have to do too much Googling, and the people could kind of, get involved in the comments or whatnot. So we're going to start from 1, and then we're going to go to 5. And I want to make this very clear. Lennox Lewis is not a British fighter. Lennox Lewis is Canadian. Lennox Lewis was born in England, but then he moved to Canada when he was around 12 years old, started boxing in Canada, won the Olympic gold medal for the Canadian national team, and then once he turned pro, tried to market himself as a British fighter. Now, the reason why he did that was because he knew there was more money in that. But credit to the British people, because they didn't really fully ever embrace Lennox Lewis. And you know how you know that? When he was the champion, he fought Frank Bruno in England, and Frank Bruno was British. He was a challenger, and most of the crowd was rooting for Frank Bruno. Go watch that fight. They're booing Lennox Lewis in the intros. Why? Because they didn't really look at him as a true Brit. They didn't. And even while he was in his championship run, his crowds weren't doing as much as Frank Bruno's crowds were doing when Frank Bruno was fighting just locally, versus non-contenders, because Frank Bruno was their guy. The way Anthony Joshua is their guy now, and he's way more, because Anthony Joshua is way better fighter than Frank Bruno and a way greater champion. So Lennox Lewis is not British. If he was British, he would be number 1 on this list. Just want to make that clear. So for me, we're going to start from number 1. Number 1 to me is Joe Calzaghe. Joe Calzaghe, undefeated, 46-0, one of the only boxers to be undefeated, who was retired as a champion, super middleweight and light heavyweight champion. To me, Joe Calzaghe's got the most thorough resume of anyone in the UK's history. I know a lot of people criticize his opposition, and I tend to think Calzaghe may be a little bit overrated by some British people, but the man was legit. He was built up very slowly, and he did beat an old Eubank. Other guys he beat, like Richie Woodall, forgot the guy's name, Bryant, the guy who dropped him, Bryant, forgot his last name. But he wasn't, fighting the best guys. But then he got his chance to fight Jeff Lacey, annihilated him, was the first guy to beat Kessler, beat Hopkins when he moved up to light heavyweight. To me, he is the best fighter in the history of the UK as of today. Number 2 is Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury obviously beat Vladimir Klitschko for the title, and he beat a very good Deontay Wilder twice, really 3 times in my book, but twice by KO. Defended his title versus Dylan White. A couple of Derek Chisora wins to throw in there. I think he's number 2. I think he's had a great career, and he's, a great star. And it's interesting because the UK public, from what I understand, they didn't fully embrace Tyson Fury either until later on. So it's interesting, because when he beat Klitschko, they really weren't so into him. But he kind of reinvented himself after he went through that whole depression thing, got himself back, his body right, his mind right. And now the UK public, they love him, and he's going to sell out versus Derek Chisora on December 3rd. If Tyson Fury beats Usyk and becomes undisputed, then I would probably, I think I would put Tyson Fury as the number 1 guy, even ahead of Joe Calzaghe. Number 3 for me is Josh Taylor. And he's obviously fighting now, undisputed champion, 140 pounds. And he really beat a good share of very good fighters at 140. Guys like Jose Ramirez, Regis Progress, recently Catterall. He has had a good run of very good fighters. Now, I got to be up front. I thought his fight versus Regis was a draw. Maybe he could have had it a win. And I thought his fight versus Catterall, he lost that fight in my book. I'm not going to say robbery. It was a close fight. I had Catterall winning by a point. It was close. Most people thought he lost. So we got to put that into perspective. But still, I think he's done enough where it warrants him being the number 3 best fighter in UK history. And I just got to be straight up. You guys in the UK are going to get mad at me, but you guys don't have that many great champions in your history. Number 4, Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua, 3 belts, beat Charles Martin, beat Joseph Parker, beat Klitschko, then Parker, Povetkin, young Dylan White, the rematch with Ruiz. I know a lot of people make fun of him for his losses to Usyk and Ruiz. Still, this is a legitimate Hall of Fame heavyweight. They have not had that before. You know, it's going to be him and Fury, going to be the first 2 that are legit Hall of Fame level. Before that, it was Frank Bruno. They didn't have anything like that. He is a legitimate elite fighter. Even now, he's still one of the best heavyweights in the game. And I think that he is in the top 5 greatest British fighters since 1980. And my number 5 pick is going to be someone that might surprise some people. I'm going to say Carl Froch. I think Carl Froch is really underrated. I know he's on the Hall of Fame ballot right now. I think he probably gets in eventually. Very underrated fighter. Did not have the most athleticism, but he had the chin. He had the work ethic. He was mentally strong, and he was an ultimate grip guy. And he had a good ring IQ as well. I mean, when you look at his career and his string of elite opponents that he fought and beat, he beat Jermaine Taylor, and he went to, I think, North Carolina to beat Taylor, and he was down, and he came back and knocked him out in the 11th round. Abram, he beat Arthur Abram, not Anthony Durrell, the older one, Andre Durrell. Who else did he beat? He beat Yusuf Mack, Butte. He beat a lot of guys. I know he lost to Andre Ward. Clearly, that was a clear loss, but still, he did his thing. And I know the Kessler loss as well. Still, he had a really, really, really good career. The 2 George Groves fights as well. I think his run was very, very underrated. And he's probably the 2nd best super middleweight of that era. And being second to Ward, I mean, you can't, you can't kill a guy for that. I mean, Andre Ward's an all-time great. So I think Carl Froch is in there. Other guys that I considered that other people might mention in the comments, Chris Eubank, Nigel Benn, Ricky Hatton is in that mix. I think Amir Khan, too inconsistent for me. I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, those are really the big dogs. I mean, let me know what you guys think. Who else is in that mix maybe that I'm forgetting about? The top 5 British fighters of all time. Number 1, Joe Calzaghe. Number 2, Tyson Fury. Number 3, Josh Taylor. Number 4, Anthony Joshua. Number 5, Carl Froch. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Peace.